So a few videos back, I did a video on 10 different shelters using a square tarp. And as expected, I got a ton of different questions, but one that stuck out a lot for me was that center tie out. Different ways to go about doing it, different tips or tricks or hacks to setting up that center point and how to actually tie that thing out. So today, that's what we're gonna do, address the issue. So I'm going to show you some simplistic ways that you can adjust that center point or tie that center point out during this video. Now, of course, at the end of all of this, you're going to need something to tie that out to. We're going to do videos in the future, and I have done them in the past, to talk about freestanding shelters and ways that you can rig up something behind your shelter to not have to tie it off to anything. But for this video, we're going to look at how do we actually tie that out if we have something behind us or something at least close. All right, so first is connection to the center point for our line. Now, most of the time your secondary ridge line is going to have some type of loop on the end, which it should. So one option is, of course, just to feed that loop through and then feed all that ridge line through there and tighten it down this way. The downfall with doing something like this is that if this thing tightens down super tight or you pull it tight, there's a good chance that this can get bound on here and it's just hard to get off. Not that you can't get it off, but it's going to be a little bit tougher to get off, and then you're actually stressing this material more than you need to. And then the second option, which I prefer most of the time, is to take your loop and put a lark's head knot in it and add a toggle. So that toggle can slide right through here, and then that toggle is going to pull on that center loop just like that. So that is going to be much more efficient for you. You can just simply pull this out then when you're done, and it comes free that quickly. So we can use either one of those methods to secure that center point out for ourselves, and then we would just bring our secondary ridge line up and around the tree just like this. And then I prefer a trucker's hitch. That's going to give us a good tensioning knot right up in the top here in order to get this center lifted up properly. So I'll just put that in place. I can begin to lift, and then that is going to lift our center point up nice and high so we have lots of room on the inside. That gives you the very basics of setting up that middle section and pulling tension in it to get more room on the inside. Now I'm going to show you the two hacks. So typically with the setup that I have right now, I just take a short piece of paracord that's thrown into my bag of stakes and my tie out lines, and I utilize that one to tie out my front end. That way I'm not having a ton of line hanging around. But if for some reason you came out and you only had one ridge line along with you, there's a very easy way that you can set this up. So we're going to start with our first ridge line. We're going to simply wrap it around the tree at the height that we want our plow point to be at. And once it's there, we're going to take that corner loop, stick it through, toggle it off. Now I'm going to just retighten that down. This toggle will hold this tarp in place from this point forward. Now from this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the end of that line, and I'm going to find my center tie out point, and I'm going to run that line that we just tied it off to the tree with through that center loop. So I'm going to pull that all the way back. All right, so now at this point, we're going to set up our plow point. So I'm going to pull my tarp back, set this back corner first, and then set my two sides. And now, because we ran that line through, we don't have to get out on top of our tarp. We're not crawling on top of it. And I can take this single ridge line, bring it back around the tree, and then I can do the same thing. I can tie a trucker's hitch right here, and I can begin to tension this. And that is going to drive up, again, that center, utilizing just one ridge line. All right, and then the last configuration I wanted to show you was we're going to keep that front toggle in place. So the corner of our tarp is set up for the plow point with the toggle, and then the remaining line is what we're going to change. All right, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my line and I'm going to run it like a traditional ridge line. So it's going to come all the way across tree to tree. Again, I can use a trucker's hitch. That's a nice tensioning knot here. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, how that is not getting that center point up. But it is. That ridge line itself, we are going to just tie a second piece of line from our tarp to the ridge line. So that's going to allow us to lift that up and pull it as tight as we want, as long as we have a nice tight ridge line. See, I told you we can make it work. Okay, so here's the benefit of this one here. Again, you can use a single ridge line and just a small piece of rope, and that is gonna give you the same effect as all the other setups. The other thing which I actually do like about this setup and using that entire ridge line, in the summer months when we are sweaty, hot, maybe we went swimming in the local swimming hole, we come back into camp, we now have a clothesline set up. So we can hang lanterns, we can hang our gear, our dirty underwear, our dirty socks, our sleeping bags, our wool blankets, we can hang all that stuff along that clothesline, and it just gives us more room in our little area there compared to a ridge line that we really can't do much with. So it's just adding a little bit of value to your shelter. And there are some simple tips and tricks and hacks with the plow point shelter to get that center point up. So I didn't want to jump too far ahead and get into lean-tos and stuff like that. We'll do that in a future video, but this should answer a lot of questions that people had about this setup and how we attach it and different ways that you can do this and get the job done. So hey, more tools for the toolbox. It's gonna make your life better when you're in the woods. So this was Dan Wolak of Coalcracker Bushcraft. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com for all our school and merchandise and these awesome tarps. People are loving them, and I'm pumped about it. So go check everything out and follow, like, all that good stuff. And until next video, stay in the woods.